Hello and welcome to this presentation about publishing low and medium content books on Amazon KDP. My name is Michael Cross. I'm a volunteer here at the Tampa-Bay Technology Center, and I wanted to introduce you to the concept of low and medium content books, primarily because it's just something that is interesting. Now, I started, learning about self-publishing books years ago. I have followed this man for most of my adult life. I'm into gardening and, professionally and everything else. Used to teach horticulture. Years ago, I met Dr. Lewis Maxwell. He and his wife created a bunch of books, a bunch of gardening books just for Florida that they published out of their house. By the way, if you look at the book on the left, that's their house. They published those books right out of there. They would have them printed and then they would take them around to garden centers. Remember when there were garden centers? I'm talking about mom and pop garden centers, and they would put them in there for sale all over the state, and people bought them. They made a living doing this. They had, they had insight, they had all kinds of books that they did, and it was very, very, very good. One of the very first things I learned was this book. I bought this book at a place called Haslam's Bookstore in St. Petersburg, Florida. Old bookstore, been there a million years. It's now closed. It closed at the pandemic and never came back. But you could find any book in the world there. I swear you could find literally any book in the world there. It was just that kind of place. This is a book about natural gardening by a man by the name of Leo Van Meer. Like I say, bought the book many years ago, still have it to this day. And it's a great book about growing a garden with no chemicals. Really cool. Uh, then one day, several years ago, I came to a place where I met his daughter, who is also a self-publisher. She was publishing a lot of books on autism and things like that at the time. And I was fascinated. She goes, "Yeah, my dad." I said, "Wait a minute, Van Meer." I said, "Is your dad Leo Van Meer?" She goes, "Yeah." Come to find out, he lived right around the corner from me. How cool was that? Guy had been reading his book for forever. Let me tell you how hard it used to be to self-publish a book, and this is going to be the example. You see, this is a soft cover book. She had the cover printed in another country. I think she told me it was the Philippines because she could get it done there for about, I don't know, a quarter of the cost that it would take to have that book cover printed in the United States because it was a full color picture. Now, the interior of the book, he wrote the book, but she retyped it using an IBM Selectric. And she did the whole interior on an IBM Selectric. It had something called a carbon ribbon on it. So all of the print looked like it was exactly identical to the other. Totally outdated method now because you're stuck with one font. You can't go larger headlines or anything like that. But the whole book, and it was, I think, close to 200 pages, uh, all typed out that way. It just boom. So she did that. Then she takes that and formats it to the right size, which is whatever this book was, had it printed, cut, and trimmed, and then she very patiently collated it, put it all together, and then glued the edges to make what was called a perfect binding, and then manually glued every cover onto these things. By the time she was done, she had a whole bedroom full of these books, boxes and boxes of these books that they went out to market. So it was a very difficult process and very expensive process because none of this was cheap to do. And like I say, she literally had to make thousands of books to start with in order to make this worth a while. I think she told me she had to have 5,000 covers made at the same time. And she would make 1,000 interiors at a time because it was a lot of work there because they had to be trimmed, they had to be collated, They had to be glued together. It was a very painstaking work, but that's what they did. And it was a very difficult job. There are companies who would do that for you back in the day, but they charged you a lot of money to do it. And it was very complicated. I know a guy that lives in Gainesville. He wrote and published a motivation book, a sales motivation book that was full of all kinds of typos and grammatical errors. Anyway, when I met the guy, he had a garage full of these things because he didn't know how to sell them, and it was terrible. But he spent literally thousands and thousands of dollars to have this done. So that is no longer the way we do it now. Thanks to Amazon KDP, we can publish a book all by ourselves for literally no money. And I'm going to show you how I did this. Now, this is a couple of my books. On the right is Ask the Garden Geek Garden Journal. This is a line journal. This is a low content book. And I should tell you that low content books have nothing in them except lines. That's it. Some of them just have dots, but they basically are a line journal. The one on the left there is Planning Your Podcast. And that is a medium content book because if you open it up and you read it, I've done a lot of writing in there, giving instructions and everything. And then it gets into lines in there because it is basically a 52 episode publishing log of all of the podcasts that you do in a year if you do weekly podcasts. That's what it was designed for. But it is a medium content book. It took me no time at all to write it because I write pretty fast. But there wasn't that much writing. And that, by the way, is the bestseller book that I have of all the ones that I've self-published. The Garden Journal, when I was on the radio, I used to do a nationally syndicated gardening radio show. And I was on the radio and I would mention the book and tell people to go to Amazon and find it. They would buy it. I didn't set the world on fire. How do you do this? You want to know, how can I do this? It's real simple. You decide what you want to do, you design your interior, and you design your cover. But you're saying, but Michael, how do I do that? It's real simple. If you have an Amazon account, which you do if you bought anything on Amazon, a lot of us are Amazon Prime members. By the way, I was an Amazon Prime member because you got free shipping and everything for like 3 years before I knew they had a video section. Anyway, you go to this page on there. You sign in and you say you want to publish your own book. This is the first page they're going to take you. It has a little video. You log in and they take you. And I'm not going to make a video about this. I'm not going to make a presentation about this because it is so simple. Even I could do it. And if I could do it, you could do it because trust me, you can do it. They take you step by step by step by step, exactly telling you how you've got to line the books up, if they're going to be bleed or no bleed, and they explain to you what that all is. All of the technical stuff is right there on Amazon for free for you to learn. Just go there and do it. Now, this is an example of a low content book. These include notebooks, journals, planners, sketchbooks, things like that. If you look, this is just lines. They call it a journal, and you can put the day's date on it. But every page is exactly the same throughout the whole book. Now, if you go back to that other slide, they will tell you as you go through the process, if you're going to make a 150-page book, you've got to, print out, or not print up, but you've got to put 150 pages into that, and then you produce it with the cover that you design as a PDF to upload to Amazon. It is not that complicated. Again, go back to that, follow their instructions verbatim and you'll work. Now, this is an example of a great medium content book, The 5-Minute Gratitude Journal for Men. It was written by a friend of mine by the name of Scott Smith. He has this fabulous, daily podcast. As a matter of fact, I just listened to it before I came in here to record this. And he does, I think, 9 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Cool guy. He wrote this. Now, it could be a line journal, but no, this is a guided journal. If you look at the interior, every page he has written, living is about your experience, and then he guides you through what you're going to do, focusing on what's important. Every page, he has written a different thing on every page. So it took him a while to get through this. I've got the book around here. It's 100 and some odd pages, and so it was a bit of work, not that much work, but a bit of work, and it is a fantastic book. And I will tell you that he has sold tens of thousands of these things and made very, very, very good money doing it. Now, why choose low and medium content books? Well, it's real simple. They're easy to create, other than the cover. Now, and we'll talk about you have to design a good cover. There's generally on no content books or low content books, there's no writing required, lines, dots, whatever. They're always in demand, depending upon what they're about. And by the way, titling these things are very, very important. And again, you don't have to fill your garage full of these books because Amazon prints them on demand. When someone orders your book, okay, they've got a bunch of these giant presses all over the country. I think the closest one to here where I live might be in Georgia. And they get the order and they stick your layout that you've already provided for them, following all of Amazon's instructions. And then boom goes the dynamite. It grinds out one copy of the book with your color cover, everything, and it's ready to be shipped. And it usually gets shipped the next day. Very, very, very simple. Very simple. Amazon Basics, KDP Basics. What is Kindle Direct Publishing exactly? Well, here's how it started out. It started out where people could write Kindle books. Do you remember the Kindle, the little like tablet thing that you could buy? You can still buy them. I had one to read your books in, and you could store your books in it. And how convenient was that? And when they started, if you wanted to write a book, you could write it and have it done on Kindle. So that's why they called it Kindle Direct Publishing. Then they started making paperback books out of it because they could sell them and they had the technology to do it. So, how does print on demand work? I just told you. You write the book, you follow all the instructions, you format it, you design the cover, and then so now we need to do our research. And that's very important. We're going to use Amazon bestsellers and BSR. More about BSR in just a moment. Hang on. We're going to use keyword research tools like Publisher Rocket or BookBolt. I have a friend who uses Publisher Rocket, and it is fantastic. It compares what you want to do with your book with all of the other books that are on Amazon, what they're selling for, how many they're selling, this type of thing. The other thing that these programs do is they help you avoid saturated niches. So that's important. What is a BSR? On Amazon, BSR, bestseller rank, it indicates the product's performance relative to others in that category. So the lower the number is, that means that the higher the sales are. So if you're doing research, say you're going to make a low content or a medium content book about teenage yoga, you go on Amazon and you research all the books about teenage yoga, and and you check those all out and you look for the BSR. You can find the BSR on the product information section about each book. If you find a lot of them with lower numbers, that means that's a competitive situation. Chances are you're going to do better there. So now, market research, you've done all your AI. There's AI tools that you can use for market research. The Publisher Rocket, that's one of the ones that work really well. It's got AI in it, and it just does really well. Also, ChatGPT, believe it or not, will research for you, and as well as a lot of the others. Bookleaf, I have heard about it. I've heard people say nice things about it. I've never used it. I have no experience with it. Pricing strategies. Okay, this is the most boring damn slide that is going to be in this presentation, and I don't even know why it's here. Because if you read it, it just, predictive analytics algorithms utilize hysterical sales data, blah, 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 blah. Okay, yes, you can do all of that if you want. You can go through all of this and check algorithms, or you can do what I do. It's real simple. You go to Amazon and you look at the best-selling books like the ones that you're going to publish. When I decided I was going to do a workbook on podcasting, I looked at all the competition. And that's how I came up with the price. That's how I came up with the amount of pages I was going to do, all kinds of things like that. I checked the BSR and I said, yes, this is something that will work for me. So that's the best way to do research, in my humble opinion, but I am yet a simple man. Now, designing your book interior, there's a lot of tools that you can use for that. I bought one for $50. I used it for a little while. It's very nice. I forget the name of it, but I'm going to tell you mostly what I use is Canva, Affinity Publisher, and Adobe InDesign. I have a friend who uses InDesign all the time, and there are templates that you can buy that you can just do it, especially if you're doing line journals. I like to do medium content books, so I'm a little bit, more geared to something a little more customizable, and Canva is very, very good for that. Now, designing your cover. This is very important. Again, I would suggest Canva. Canva's not that difficult to learn, and you can make some pretty nice covers with it. This is a cover for a book that my friend Truman Burst wrote, and he needed help on the cover. Well, we went to a website called Fiverr, Fiverr, two R's, .com, and he paid $7 for that cover. Now, in today's world, you're going to pay more. You can get a pretty good book cover designed for you on Fiverr relatively quickly for 25 up to $150, depending upon, the artist and what you want to do. And so there's some money that you can spend there, or you can do it for free. Now, my best-selling medium content book is Planning Your Podcast. Now, I designed this cover for free using Amazon KDP's software that is included back, to that original page where they, show you how to do everything. You can design your cover on there. I found that microphone. I chose the color. I chose the font. I designed that thing in about 10 minutes. And as it turns out, it's my best seller. Of all the books that I've self-published, that one is my best seller. And you're going to, if you're going to upload your book to Amazon KDP, again, follow the instructions from that original slide that I showed you. You have to choose your trim size, your paper type. You're going to want to, you can use, a matte finish, all kinds of white paper, the color of the paper that you want to use, all of those things. And then the binding. A perfect binding is like a square book, or not a square book, but a book that has, a flat side to it. That is a perfect binding. If your book is not big enough, it's going to be a staple. That's what it's going to be. And then you have to figure out your competitive price. And here's the thing. Amazon, once you submit your book, they're going to tell you what your cost is for that book. They're going to give you a price to print that book every time someone orders it and ship it out. You're going to know what that is. So when you decide what your pricing is going to be, you take that and you add to it. I usually add a couple of dollars, $3 or $4, sometimes $5. I might make $4 or $5 on the gardening book, or any of the others that I have that reasonably sell. The podcasting one, I think I make $4.50 on. So that's how you do that. When you're choosing your paper type, don't use glossy if it's going to be a journal, because nobody's going to write on it. So you have to make the choice there. Again, we go back, to this page on Amazon. They will walk you through very simply, step by step by step by step. It's very, very simple. Now, Marketing your books. You're going to want to use Amazon SEO and keywords, and you can learn a little bit about that. One of the things a lot of people do is use social media. They stick it on Facebook. They stick it on Instagram. They stick it on YouTube. They stick it on TikTok. I'll show you one of those in just a moment. Um, and you just, if you're going to write a series of books, like my friend Kelly wrote all of her books, they kind of look similar. So she's actually built an author's brand with her low content books. And that's important if you're going to do a lot of books. So you start thinking about that. Here's what another lady did. I just took a screenshot off of TikTok last night. And this woman wrote all the books that you see in the back. She's on TikTok all the time, pushing her books, talks about them, reads little sections of them, and everything. There's a lot of authors who are going to TikTok. I need to start thinking about doing this. There's a lot of authors who go to TikTok and they are building, you know, big sales, and they're just driving people to Amazon. Or what a lot of people are doing is they're getting them, you can buy it through the TikTok shop, depending upon the book. There's one little book with a ugly little white cover that they just printed up a bunch of them through Amazon, and they sell them on the TikTok shop and make a ton of money, more than they make selling it through Amazon. So TikTok is pretty good as long as it's still around. Here's some pitfalls you're going to want to avoid. Copyright and trademark issues. Do not violate copyright laws. They come out to your house. I'm saying they send people out to the house if you do that. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Poor formatting mistakes. Yeah, you've got to be very, very, very careful on that. Low quality design. Yeah, if you're going to do it right. Take your time, work hard on it. Are there success stories? Yeah, I just talked about Kelly. Here's one right here. Kelly Roberts. I've met her personally. I've met her husband. Wonderful people. She makes nothing but low content books. And she probably has 500 or 600 of them on Amazon right now. Who knows? The Home Boss, another lady. She lives in London, very expensive place. She's been doing this now for 3 years, and she's making a full-time living off of mostly low and medium content books, although she does have a couple of regular books that she has since published, one or two, and done very, very well with it. So now it's time for you to start creating your very first low or medium content book. And I will tell you from experience, once you get the flow going, you're going to be very surprised on how many you can get done. Kelly, at one point, was doing 30 to 40 a day. Now she does 10, a day. So she actually stopped doing it for a while because she had several hundred books out there that were just bringing her in money while she was doing nothing, and she was interested in doing other things. She learned how to do Photoshop, and she was designing t-shirts and stuff like that. She just recently got back into doing the books, and she's doing that and building up more of an inventory on that. Once you get a good inventory of books, they're just going to evergreen sell for you. So that's something that you're going to want to, think about. I want to thank you so much for joining us for this presentation. I'm Michael Kroos. I'm with the Tampa Bay Technology Center. We fix computers for free for our members. How cool is that? We'll see you next time.